Hey friend, this is episode number 503 of the And So podcast with Taylor Bradford. Let's get to it. Boss Girl Creative presents And So with Taylor Bradford, business and life musings from a successful serial entrepreneur. Each week, you will hear Taylor spill the tea on all things business, life, relationships, health, and everything in between. But don't worry, each week also includes a business nugget that will help you stay on course. And now a throwback to 3-year-old Taylor who inspired all of this.
And so, what is it?
Well, hello, beautiful friend. Thank you so much for pressing play today. I'm your host, Taylor Bradford. This is the And So podcast. Today, I got a variety of things to chat with you about and a really good nugget that is actually really inspiring. At least I think so, and I hope you do as well. So let's just dive right on in to this week's topics. Topic number 1, MailChimp woes. Y'all, I just spent an hour on chat support with MailChimp because I got the notification that I was billed for the month of January, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't pay that much. And I was like, I have not daftly increased my list. So what is going on? And I logged in, and somehow one of my embed forms, actually a pop-up form, not an embed form, a pop-up form, which I didn't even have live anywhere on Boss Girl Creative, which is wild to think about, it was hacked. And I gained 1,500 plus emails that were all jokes, which triggered an increase in my bill and triggered me getting in blacklist territory because my welcome autoresponder had a hard bounce rate of 15% or more. And so I am in the review status with MailChimp because of it. And so I'm talking to MailChimp and I'm trying to figure out how to what do I do? How do I get rid of all these people quickly? How do I fix my account? How do I get a refund? This is so bizarre. And I got accused of using Safari, and I actually was like, why did you assume I was on Safari? Right now, as I was working through archiving the individual email addresses, and I could do it. At first, I thought I could only do it by 50, so 1 through 50, and then refresh in 1 through 50. I was able to increase it to 100, but still, that took time, and it wasn't working. I kept getting an error, so they were like, well, clear your cache and your history, and I was like, okay. Well, then MailChimp stopped responding, and I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. And it stopped responding on the chat, and it stopped responding on the website. I was like, oh, you mean I have to start all over and have brand new conversations with another agent? Thankfully, it went right back to it once it figured itself out. I don't even know. And I ended up doing it by 100s in a completely different manner. And I got them all archived. And then I went on the hunt for the pop-up form. And I did find a pop-up form for the Boss Girl Creative audience. Again, it wasn't published anywhere, but it was the one that was hacked. And so I deleted that. And now I'm just going to watch my account. Because the agent, it was a he made a comment. He was like, hey, you need to turn on 2-factor authentication or the reCAPTCHA. And I was like, but everything I have is third party. I'm not using, I think I have one MailChimp form, but the rest is Genesis eNews extended widget through WordPress. And then I do have Opt-in Monster, but I don't have a pop-up. And I don't know that I have even turned on Opt-in Monster yet for Boss Girl Creative. I have it operating on the House of Sugar Creek website, but I don't think I've actually put it on Boss Girl Creative. Anyways, so I got all the names archived, and then I did receive a credit on my bill. But then here's the thing, I'm in legacy billing. Like, I have a legacy plan with MailChimp. I looked to see how long I've been with MailChimp, and it's March of 2016. Now, honestly, I think I was with MailChimp much longer than that, but that's as far back as I could go. I have a feeling something changed in 2016 that stopped my billing history. I bet if I looked in my emails, I would find it. I know I've been with MailChimp longer than 10 years. I wouldn't have started this podcast without some kind of newsletter subscription. And since I was blogging since 2008, and I think I started my emails in 2011. Anyways, I've been with MailChimp a really long time. They're the only email provider I've used. So, wow, MailChimp woes. So, back to the whole legacy thing, I got upgraded into the next tier because of the 1,500 additional emails that got added, which is why my bill increased. And so he was like, well, it's legacy and we can't do anything about it. We can't go backwards. And I'm like, oh, hell no. You are going to go backwards. You are going to figure this out. I want to talk to a manager or a supervisor or whatever term, team leader, whatever term you guys are using. And we're going to get this figured out. So what got communicated to me was I have to wait a whole billing cycle. And then next month, it's going to see that I'm back at the amount that I had previously, and it should downgrade itself. And I was like, and if it doesn't, who do I talk to? I'm like, why is it so hard? Like, no, you're not going to take this plan away because I didn't do it. I didn't spam my whole MailChimp account. That was so crazy. Okay, so that was MailChimp woes. Let's talk about hiring. Okay, so I do have one final Sugar Creek interview coming up this week, and then I'm making a decision, and I'm looking forward to making a decision because I feel really stuck right now. I have been interviewing still for Smitty's, and let me tell you, the people that are showing up do not have their own vehicles. They are being brought by other humans, and they have been fast food workers, which there's no shame or judgment in that other than they have no skills. So all they saw was how much you can make and did not check themselves about whether or not they had anything to offer me. So the last interview that I did, which I have now, I've got new things in place, new parameters in place, which I'll talk about in just a second. But the last person I interviewed, the gentleman, I don't know what he's doing or where he's currently working, but in the interview process, he did tell me he was about to go back to school for welding. And I'm like, well, then how is this going to work? Because he was like, my school's in Dallas. Anyways, I asked him, because you're looking for specific personality traits, right? For doing outside sales. You have to have thick skin. You have to be very confident. You have to be persuasive. Like, there's things that I'm looking for. And honestly, shaking my hand is one of them. Oh my goodness. Anyways, so one of my first questions is, tell me a time where you struggled or you got frustrated or something was hard. What did you do? How did you overcome it? Tell me. And he just kind of stared at me and wouldn't really give me an answer. And I was like, okay, well, what is one previous job you've done? And so he told me he worked at fast food. And I said, okay, I'm a customer and I'm very unhappy about my food. What are you going to say to me? How are you going to handle that? And he just kind of looked, and then he remembered a previous customer having a problem, and he just didn't do a really good job of explaining what he did to fix it. And so by the time he got done telling me the story, which wasn't really a good telling, the story wasn't told well, I said, so was the customer ultimately happy? Oh yeah, she was ultimately happy. I was like, okay. So then the next question I ask is, what happens when you don't have an answer to a question, or you don't have the knowledge base to help somebody? What do you do? And he kind of just looked at me, and I was like, okay, so you used to work at a wing store. If I come in and say I need 1,000 wings, what are you going to tell me? And he just kind of looked at me, and I was like, man, I really don't want to have to keep prompting you. Like, I'm walking up to your counter and say, I need 1,000 wings. What are you going to tell me? Are you going to tell me to go kick rocks? That is not even possible to do when you just walk up to the counter without like putting that as a big order, catering size. And he just kind of stared at me, and I was like, dude, how long would it actually take to cook 1,000 wings? And he was like, well, probably 1.5 to 2 hours. And I said, okay, so would I wait in the store? Like, what would you tell me? I'm not waiting 1.5, 2 hours in the store for 1,000 wings. Plus, the first 500 wings are going to be cold. Like, oh my gosh, this is the human race we have. Okay, so yes. So I put in some new parameters. My new parameters include that I am looking for somebody that has prior sales experience. It doesn't have to be in the construction or the roofing industry. Past sales experience is like what I'm looking for. And if you don't have it, tell me why you would be a good fit. And I have had 2 people say, I haven't exactly worked sales, but here's why. And I'm like, okay, I'll interview you. I will hear you out. Like, I'm just tired of these limp, shaking, like interviews that are happening for an outside sales. Like that, the last guy was like, so what exactly do you do? What exactly would I be doing? Are you going to train me? And I was like, oh my gosh, dude. Yeah. Thank you for your time. Goodbye. So crazy. Okay. I have to tell you, most recently on my YouTube channel, which actually I think was in response to either one, I don't remember, one of my shorts or one of my actual YouTube videos that I published, I got a comment from somebody, and of course their username was user blah, 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 like no actual username. Their picture it wasn't conclusive. I had no idea who they were. And so I clicked on their profile, and their account was established in November of last year, so only a few months old. I did screenshot the actual comment because I did eventually, after I responded to them, I did report them. And but then I decided that it was kind of humorous, and so I made some content from it. But this is what they said on one of my videos on YouTube. Why are men buying land for women who look like goblins? And then there's an emoji of laughing tears. And I was like, wow, that's actually the first time I've had somebody comment on me personally. Like, the jest is at me. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I told my sister-in-law, who is like die-hard Harry Potter and all of that kind of like shows, Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons and all of that. And she was like, oh my gosh, people are so mean. I was like, yeah, well, it says more about them than it does me. She was like, I would have had a heyday. I would have said, like, are we talking Harry Potter? Are we talking The Labyrinth? Are we talking, like, she named out all of these things, and I was like, oh, I should have been like, well, what goblin are we talking about? So I created a reel. I didn't publish this on YouTube. I only published it on Instagram and TikTok, but I had to make fun of it because I did actually think it was kind of humorous. I wasn't offended, more offended that you couldn't be man or woman enough to have a name attached to your account, which again says more about them than me. So I had a good, fun clap back over that. So that happened. And then I want to talk about, before we get to the nugget, I want to talk about compounding interest, and not in the way that you might think, but I am going to sort of talk about it in the way you think when you hear compounding interest. So compounding interest, how that really works. And it's more dramatic in the stock market. Okay, that is how the rich get richer, because of how fast it's compounding. And if you're not already investing in the stock market, I do encourage you to do that. At minimum, the IRA yearly amounts, get your money in the stock market. It's like the return is really good. And that's coming in from even an upswing and a downswing. It's definitely riskier than like a savings account, which has flat interest. That does compound, but not as quickly as the stock market. And when I first started investing in the stock market, I didn't realize how quickly you could gain. Like, it is so bizarre to see how quickly you gain, because it just daily is compounding on itself. So I have IRAs through the Fidelity, I think it's FAIX, I believe is its short form. Ultimately, it is Fidelity's people watching the S&P 500. And so they are trading like it's the S&P 500. And they're actually better than the S&P 500, which is so wild. Like, when you get your prospectus every quarter and then yearly, you can see who they are. You can see who your investors are, which is really cool, and how long they've been investing, et cetera, et cetera. And so my return rate on my Fidelity, my S&P, so that's separate than my IRAs. My IRAs, I'm going through the American Growth Fund, which is something I used to do my 401k through way back in the day when I worked for a company that did matching. And I did really well. So when I went off and just started my own IRAs every year as an entrepreneur, I just went back to that American Growth Fund, and it served me well. So I've got the Fidelity Index, and then I have the American Growth Fund, and they are doing really, really, really well. But that's not what we're really here to talk about. I'm talking about compounding interest as it relates to your social media. And this is more going to be aimed at Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, because that is what I've been paying attention to. I don't really think that this mythology works with Pinterest, because I don't think Pinterest really compounds like what you see the stock market doing. And ultimately, what's crazy about the stock market is, let's say you start out with $100 and you gain $5. And then now you're at 105 and you gain another 10%. And now you're at whatever that equates out to. Like, that's daily, which is so crazy. So if you have a really big gain, then the next day you have a chance to compound that even more. That's how the rich get richer. Like, it's like, once you can see it in action, you will be like, I totally get this. I'm seeing that through TikTok and YouTube. Not so much Instagram. I feel like Instagram is this cog that just won't move. Like, when I got reshared by a seed company a couple weeks ago, I gained like 10 followers. But then I have lost a few followers since then. So I've kind of just stayed like regular. Like, I'm not seeing a whole lot of movement as it relates to followers, and then also engagement. And last week I talked about, like, this is where my posts were at this amount of time in and this amount of time in. And I'm still seeing that happening between the three. Now, what I'm seeing from a compounding interest standpoint is the way YouTube and TikTok are moving. It is compounding like it is the stock market. Now, there's not really a pitfall with either of those, and let's just keep the TikTok being banned set aside. Like, let's not think about that right now. But there's not a downfall. And there's only an upward trajectory when it comes to this. And there was a girl I was following on YouTube. She's in the garden space. And I went down a rabbit hole to see when she started her account, what her videos look like in the beginning, and then where did she start gaining traction. And I don't remember the exact video, but there was one video that kind of took off, and then it fell back down her next couple of videos, and then she had another one take off, and then it just started compounding on itself. But she was only producing content, I think at the time, weekly or every other week. She was not creating content weekly or bi-weekly, and she definitely wasn't adding shorts to the mix. Now, granted, 2 years ago, shorts didn't exist on YouTube. It was just video content or the long form content. So what I have seen on my own channels is that when you post regularly, consistently on both YouTube and TikTok, you begin to compound your interest. And it's rewarding. Like, it makes you want to keep going because there is forward progress. Like, I get excited when I wake up and refresh on both TikTok and YouTube and see new followers. And I do think that their algorithms are more helpful for people to find what you're producing. I think there's so much noise on Instagram. The content, for the most part, is the same. Maybe not everyone is putting their Instagram Reels content over on YouTube. They should be, but I don't think they are. So it's helpful that I am doing that, but man, the compounding interest. So I started twice a week videos. Like, when I decided to bring back my YouTube channel, I started twice a week videos back in November. And then earlier this month, I believe, and then I was hit or miss on whether or not I was putting my Instagram Reels content on YouTube. I was doing good by getting it over on TikTok, but I wasn't also consistently putting over on YouTube. Now it's all going over there, except for the Goblin video. I didn't go put that over on YouTube. But anyways, everything else is going on YouTube. So I created an Instagram. I download it out before I hit publish. And then I go put it on TikTok. And then I go put it on YouTube. So that's my workflow. And I am doing short form content right now 1 time a day. Now, I could boost that up to 2 times a day. I think I would get a little bit more stressed about it. I could use my own SEO, like go out and find what people are asking and create content around that. But I feel good right now producing 1 short form piece of content a day that feels like me. Because that you have to love what you're doing, right? That's the whole point of all of this. So I feel like I can keep up with 1 piece of content a day and then share it out on both of the other platforms. And then 2 videos a week over on YouTube, plus once a week with the podcast. It is a lot of content to be creating for sure. But again, that compounding interest. It's exciting to see the growth. Like, I feel like I have a shot at getting monetized on my YouTube, which is one of my big goals for 2025. If I get monetized on TikTok, that's even cherries on top. Like, I never set out to get monetized on TikTok because I didn't know what TikTok was going to do. I set out to get monetized on YouTube, and the cherry on top will probably be getting monetized on TikTok as well if TikTok stays around. So I don't want you to think that your efforts cannot be rewarded with this compounding interest mythology when they can. You just got to use different platforms, and you got to figure out what is going to work for you. Like, I've had Instagram since Instagram has existed, right? Like, my account is as old as Instagram. You've heard me say that before. However, my accounts aren't as old as YouTube, and my accounts aren't as old as TikTok. And I'm finding more movement over there than I am with Instagram. But I kind of just feel like I owe Instagram something, which is so bizarre, so stupid. But here we are. So I don't want you to discount that there isn't this possibility that you could also find this compounding interest happening for you on another platform, because it absolutely could happen. Like, I don't know if I said out loud. I should probably start keeping track. We're going to say it out loud. I'm going to write it down. But I'm going to tell you, for YouTube, in the last, let's see if I can get to my analytics. In the last, November of 2024, I received 9 new subscribers. In December 2024, I received 16 more subscribers. In January 2025, I am at 39 subscribers. I've added 39 subscribers. That is really bizarre for a YouTube channel, I think, just based on what I can see and have seen on other people's channels. So that is that. So I am sitting at, right now, 234 subscribers. I'm going to write that down so that when I look back at my notes next week, I will see what they say. So YouTube, 234 subs. Okay, over on TikTok, I have 139 followers and 1,386 likes. Okay, followers, and then 1,386 likes. Okay, so that is that. And then on Instagram, we might as well just look at all of it, right? Instagram, I am sitting at 3,470 followers. Now, it's kind of stuck there. It really is kind of stuck there. And if we look at, I posted my reel this morning. The reel I posted this morning on Instagram has 200 views. The same video on TikTok has 918. And then the same one over on YouTube has 104. That's so wild. So it really is. So I'm encouraging you to do your own testing. Test, tune, pivot, research, yada, yada, yada. So I've written all this down so I have something to look back to when I talk about this next week. Okay, so let's get into the nugget. This week's nugget, I was inspired by a fellow gardener out on Instagram, and you'll probably eventually see me do an Instagram reel. And it starts like this. And it's kind of one of those loops where you don't really know when the sentence ends or when the story ends and the story starts. But her story ended and started with this. So become 2 people. The unapologetic one who fights for her joy, and the relaxed one who sits down and enjoys it. Now, she was talking about this from the gardener's standpoint, but this resonates for everyone. And here's the story that she shared. A warrior in a garden isn't looking for a fight, but she's ready to protect what matters. Her joy, her peace, the magic she's spent so much time building. The garden isn't just where she rests. It's the whole point. It's what she fought for, what she created, and what she gets to enjoy. Joy doesn't just happen. Peace doesn't just show up. You make it. You defend it. And then you soak it all in. So become the warrior. Build the life you want. Fight for it. And then let yourself sit in the middle of all of that magic and enjoy it. You talk about a powerful message, especially when one of my goals for 2025 is to seek joy daily. I just sat and basked in that. So I'm going to repeat the top of it. So become two people. The unapologetic one who fights for her joy, and the relaxed one who sits down and enjoys it. That is what I wish for you. Thank you so much for listening. I would love to hear from you, whether it is you sharing your wins, whether they're quick wins, hard-fought wins, whatever win you want to share with me. I would love to hear your wins. So don't be scared or shy or anything of the above. Share them with me. Send me a DM over on Instagram at Boss Girl Creative, or send me an audio message. Go to bossgirlcreative.com/speak and leave me some audio love there. Share your wins there. That would be so amazing. Until next time, I hope you have a great rest of this week. And like my 3-year-old self said, that is all for this week. Friendly reminder to rate and review my show wherever you are listening. And last but not least, I'd love to hear from you. Leave me an audio message at bossgirlcreative.com/speak. I would love to hear your takeaways, ideas for upcoming episode topics, and your feedback. Thank you again for listening to this week's episode. And until next time, I hope you have a great rest of this one.